Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wasallam wa ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Brothers and sisters in Islam, is Donald Trump a adhab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala toward mankind? Let's start with this ayah from Surah At-Tawbah, ayah 55. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا تُعْجِبْكَ أَمْوَالُهُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُمْ إنما يريد الله ليعذبهم بها في الحياة الدنيا وتزهق أنفسهم وهم كافرون. So this ayah, the context of the ayah is about the munafiqeen. But what we want to extract from this ayah, from this verse of the Quran, is the broader principle. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not be impressed, do not be amazed by the munafiqeen when you look at their wealth and their children, when you see how powerful they are, they seem to have a great life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that in reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to torment them through their wealth and their children. So the ulama, if you look at the tafsir of the ulama with the scholars of Islam, their commentaries on this ayah and everything, you will find some very interesting elements that are actually, illustrated in everyday's life. If you reflect about life and you look at the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the lesson we take from this ayah is that when someone turns away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when someone makes i'rad an dinillah and follows, shaitan and becomes themselves, maybe they become a human shaitan because of something from this dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the adhab He will give them in this dunya before the akhirah is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make this very thing that they have, that has caused them to turn away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah ta'ala will make it become a source of torment against them. Iyadhan billahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for example, if someone loves money and wealth so much that they have forgotten about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they don't perform their salat, they have broken all moral principles of Islam, they have become so corrupt because of wealth, because of money. It is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His hikmah, from His wisdom, that Allah azza wa jal, in this worldly life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sooner or later He will make their life miserable, and Allah ta'ala will make that wealth become a source of suffering for them. If, for example, which by the way unfortunately happens with a lot of Muslims nowadays, if someone loves their children so much, you see some people, it is as if the whole universe evolves around their own children. That, I want my son to be the best and to have the best education, to have the best health and to be the best, to the point that, your children almost become like your God, your idols, that you are living your whole life for them because you want them to be so successful, you want them to be the best, that you forget everything. You forget Allah ta'ala, you forget your salat, you forget your dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembrance of your Lord, you forget charity, you forget helping others. Maybe you start taking money from haram just because you want to make your children so happy. Well, usually what happens is that maybe your children will become successful for their own selves, when they grow up, but the truth of the matter is that Allah ta'ala will make them turn against you, and they will become a source of suffering and torment for that person. Now that we have started with this introduction, everyone is seeing, brothers and sisters in Islam, what Donald Trump is doing to the world. And I personally believe, wallahu ta'ala a'lam, that Donald Trump is a adhab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is a adhab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind. Because, or before I mention why, let me just clarify one thing. When we say that someone is a adab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it does not mean that that person, is sacred, or the representative of Allah Azza wa Jalla, or that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves them. I just don't want you here to, think like, what is this brother telling us? Like, what, Donald Trump? Allah ta'ala has sent Donald Trump because Allah ta'ala loves Donald Trump? No, no, no. Sometimes Allah Azza wa Jalla sends someone as adab on someone else because both of them in reality they are corrupt. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish each other, will torment each side through the other side. وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. So when we say Donald Trump is probably maybe adab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't mean that Donald Trump himself is safe. No, Donald Trump, if he continues his life on the kufr and the corruption that he has lived on for the since we have known him as a public figure, if that's how he will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, well, the adab that will be waiting for him in the akhirah is something that no one can describe. فَيَوْمَئِذٍ لَا يُعَذِّبُ عَذَابَهُ أَحَدٍ, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and it came in the authentic hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that one dip in Jahannam, just one dip in Jahannam, may Allah ta'ala protect us in hellfire, will make you forget anything you have enjoyed in this life. In other words, all of the torment of mankind in this worldly life is nothing compared to a moment of adab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the akhirah. So Donald Trump is maybe adab for mankind in this dunya, but if Donald Trump continues this way, the adab of Allah Azza wa Jal in the akhirah is much bigger to whatever Donald Trump has caused. Now, why do I believe that Donald Trump is adab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to mankind? You see, if you're following the news, and I'm sure everyone is following the news to a certain extent, this man, he is destroying the world as we knew it before. Destroying the world as we knew it before. He is breaking, it's like a kid, imagine you bring a kid to a daycare, and he's having this crazy tantrum, and the daycare has some of the best toys that all the kids were playing with before. They love it so much, and then all the kids left, and they brought this kid who's really out of control, and he just starts breaking everything. He's breaking everything that people have worked on for many years, that have invested on. So this is obviously something much bigger than a daycare or playing with toys. This man, he is breaking the Western world. He is breaking, the whole basically global economy that people have lived on for many decades, that surprisingly, which is very odd, it's very strange. Surprisingly, this global world order that we have lived through for many decades was actually built and imposed by America itself. Subhanallah. Now, why is Donald Trump doing this? It's very strange. It's really very strange. It's very odd, because Donald Trump is not only, breaking and destroying the world economy. Not that I care personally for the world economy. We're not the one, like me and you, we're probably not the ones really benefiting from the world economy anyways. It's the capitalist corporations and so on and so forth, and the oppressive governments that just go around the world and occupy poor people's lands and so on and so forth. So we're not the one who are benefiting from this. But subhanallah, if you think about it, the adab is huge, which has probably never happened before except once during the COVID times, and we'll get back to that in a moment, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But now you have CEOs of huge corporations, billionaires. You have politicians, for example, even in the West, like in Europe and so on and so forth, who are probably, I'm sure about this, I'm like 100% sure about this, that they are not able to sleep at night. This guy is gonna cause them, many of them are gonna end up, having blood pressure and diabetes and so on and so forth, because he's driving them mad crazy with all the roller coaster, decisions he's making. Like today he says, Today he would say, I'm imposing 25%. And then in the morning, okay, I'm not imposing anymore. And that night, you know what, let's make it 50% actually. And then, day after, okay, I'll give you a month, and so on. It's like, it's crazy. It's crazy, like he's playing games with their minds, with their hearts, with their psychology, and there's not much they can do about it because they are the ones who have contributed to building this monster right now. This man, and at the same time, by the way, this Donald Trump is breaking also his very own country, which is again very strange. America was built on, as they call it, democracy, the model for the land of the free, the land where they call it the checks and balances, basically having this balance in the different powers that exist and everything. But subhanallah, Allah Ta'ala made it. Nobody was expecting it, or very few people were expecting it. Allah Ta'ala has made it that Donald Trump, basically the people around him are not don't even dare stopping him, or maybe they have their own reasons for not stopping him. But anyways, he kind of, his own people, his own party controls the Congress, controls the other room. The Supreme Court are people, many of them that kind of agree with his mindset. He has Elon Musk with him, and now the Facebook guy, the Meta Instagram guy, they're all getting on board with him, which means these people are some of the wealthiest people in the West and in the world, and they control the media, the mindsets, the social media. So there's not much they can do elsewhere in Europe and so on and so forth. And even in his very own country, those very powerful people usually who are being affected by his policies, it looks like they're just watching in disbelief, and there's not much they can do about this. But again, who has built this monster? Because for decades they said, look, America, this is democracy. We are a democracy. It's the beauty of democracy that even a president cannot do whatever he wants, and we get to elect representatives and everything. And here's now one man who's breaking, again, think about those toys. He's breaking those, democratic whatever institutions, as they call them. He is firing, federal employees. When you think about federal employees and people who are working for, people who are FBI agents and everything, not long ago, these people were seen as, they have some of the best jobs in the world. They have so much influence, right? They can even remotely control what happens in other countries. And here they are, in front of our eyes, subhanAllah, being humiliated and being, stepped on by their very own president. So now, even, by the way, the American people, they are going through adab because of this man. And maybe what's coming up, it's going to be bigger. Once the inflation is going to become very high and they cannot afford food and so on and so forth, people who have elected him, who are defending him, well, they will, bite on their finger or on their hand, as we say, يَعَضُّ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ. That's in the akhirah, but there's a smaller version in the dunya. And they will say, what did we do? Who did we elect? Subhanallah. And there's not much they can do. At least, doesn't look like there's any hope for them to do anything to get rid of him or to stop him. Because again, he is using the very powers, the very legal powers that he is given as a president. The second time he came back, and he understands very well the system, unlike the first time. So he knows which mistakes not to make. And, he has kind of full control. He has the remote, the remote control, and he's kind of doing whatever he wants. And, human beings are not able to stop him. So again, he's breaking the world economy, breaking his own country. It's very strange. It's very strange. I mean, America built the world order. It built it. America built the global economy, the capitalist economy, built it, imposed it on the rest of the world, sold it to the rest of the world by force or by, media or ideological means, and so forth, and so on and so forth. So now, if Donald Trump is doing all of this? Why is he doing all of this? I don't know. Allahu A'lam. It's very strange. It's very strange. If you think about it, why would someone behave this way? Either that, maybe there are other explanations. I don't know. I'm just saying, to my understanding, the way I see it, either this man is really crazy, he's insane, again, he's like that, crazy kid who's out of control, who's throwing a tantrum. He's just mad at everyone. He wants to break everything for everyone. So either he's doing it just for fun, just that feeling, because, like Fir'aun, قَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. Sometimes when a person gets so corrupt by shaitan, عِيَاذًا billah, they have this, thing that they want to become a god, an idol. They want to have that feeling of endless power that they can crush on everyone else and nobody can do anything about it. So maybe that's what it is, right? He has a lot of anger. He wants to take revenge against, all the people of the kind of the liberal world that stood against him after, he lost the elections the previous time. And that he just wants to destroy everything and to make everyone suffer. That's possible. Or maybe, Wallahu A'lam, there's like some sort of a deeper, more advanced explanation, knowing that he is a businessman. Maybe, obviously, he was a president before. He's a billionaire. He knows how to do business. Let's not forget that, right? He knows probably the deeper, the hidden secrets of the world economy much better than me and you, because he was a president before, right? He had access to super secret information and he's surrounded by billionaires and so on and so forth. Maybe he knows something, many things maybe, that have convinced him that the very existence of his country as a world power is like 100%, basically at risk, that China is taking over the world economy, and that, in not too long after today, very soon, that the US, will just, break down and will just become a very small side player. So maybe he took the decision. That's why, again, why is he becoming friends with Russia? So maybe if that's the theory, if that's the explanation why Donald Trump is doing this, if he's doing it maybe for his country, but something more long term, but at the same time he's taking a major risk, right? He's playing it big, basically. Take a big risk, break everything, rebuild from scratch before it becomes too late. It's a huge risk, but maybe he believes that there's no other choice but to do this. So maybe again, he's so afraid of China and China taking over the world, and that everything is made in China, everything is being imported from China, everything is cheaper in China. Technology now has become global. China is going to have its own AI, it's going to have its own drones and technology for the military and everything, and that the US will become kind of irrelevant after. So maybe he chose to go for Russia as an ally, and forget Europe, forget Canada. Let's kind of share the pie with the Russians. Maybe that's the way that Donald Trump sees it. He sees that Russia is not a big threat anymore to his country, and why not become an ally, friends with Russia? We can give them Ukraine. We can even give them some parts of Europe. Maybe that's the plan of Donald Trump. He's making. I mean, think about it. When Donald Trump says he wants to take over Canada, right? And Russia also wants to take over some parts of Canada, the north of Canada. They kind of fight for it. So maybe that's the plan of Donald Trump. Maybe, they want to take over Canada. He wants to take over Canada and he's going to give 30% to the Russians and keep the rest to himself. Same thing with Europe. Look, Putin or Russia, you take, the kind of the Eastern Europe, will let you do whatever you want with it. And I will take the Western Europe. I will control it. And those people cannot do much about it. Because again, I'm just giving a summary here. I'm no expert in world economy. It's not my area, but at the same time, I'm not like, ignorant to the point that I cannot understand anything, but I'm just giving you examples here. Maybe he knows some stuff, about the upcoming wars for resources, I mean the wars for water and for natural resources and so on, that, he thinks to himself, this is kind of the only way to do it. I have to go and grab things by force, and the way to do it is that I will have first to break my my opponents. I break them and then I take them. So break it and then take it. Um, and maybe at the same time, there's something very personal with this, that, himself and Elon Musk. I made a video about Elon Musk and why is he being so involved with Donald Trump. You can watch it, inshallah. So maybe, himself and the very small group around him, they want to kind of, build a new American empire, but not the same type of empire that they had before, where you had, a republic basically that's taken over through military and everything. No, he wants to kind of become a king. It's going to be like a small group of people who will control America, and America will control much of the world again through force and through breaking everyone else before they become independent from America. So again, the whole point in this, brothers and sisters in Islam, is to see how, when people, they disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, how much kufr, how much evil, how much corruption, how much oppression was caused in this world by human beings, by mankind, for the past, 30, 40 decades, just because, they were worshipping this thing called America, right? They were worshipping America. America was like a god, subhanallah. It was actually a god. It was, false god, obviously, but people, they took it for a god. They were making ibadah for America, right? Most of mankind actually was submitted to America in a way or not. They were not submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, including, unfortunately, some so-called Muslims, and about what's going on in the Muslim world and the politics and so on and so forth. So, well, you were worshipping America. You أشركتم بالله عز وجل ما لم ينزل به سلطانا. You forgot Allah Ta'ala, your Lord, and you made, you thought that America was your Lord. Well, enjoy the consequences, kind of, right? إنما يريد الله ليعذبهم بها في الحياة الدنيا. Allah Azza wa Jal can torment them through this idol that they were worshipping before. You can taste now the consequences of your shirk and your disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which obviously is very unfortunate. Not that we enjoy it, but we're just explaining here. The goal of this video is just to explain the sunan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the wisdom of Allah azza wa jal. And by the way, maybe we have not seen anything yet. We have not seen anything yet, because it looks like, it sounds like people are still in a very deep state. When I say people, I mean Muslims here, because that's my main concern. When we do da'wah, our priority is the message, obviously, to our own Muslims. We have to fix our own selves before thinking about mankind, right? So it looks like us as Muslims, we are still in a pretty deep level of ghafla, of being a way that we're not seeing. We're blind. If you see what Muslims are doing, how they are living, and just one way to see it is through social media, because that's where people, they spend most of their life on nowadays. Subhanallah, subhanallah, how low have we become? How low, just like enjoying the dunya, not the dunya, the halal, the normal, the spontaneous, the clean way, in a very impure way. Even the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal has become, a topic for mockery, for jokes. People are making videos where they mock the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Because just because they want to be relevant on TikTok or on Instagram, whatever. So they are making these videos where they mock, they make fun of Salat, they make fun of Ramadan, they make fun of Hajj, they make fun of this and that, subhanallah. So it looks like, this whole, what I'm trying to say here, to conclude, inshallah, because I mentioned COVID before, we have already mentioned before. I personally mentioned it earlier in other khutab of other khutab of Jumu'ah, and lectures and so on, that I believed at the time when COVID came, when COVID hit, COVID was kind of the end of the world as we knew it before. And it was shocking to almost everyone. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody thought that something like this would happen in their lifetime. Consequences again on economy and on many other areas in life. So it was a shock. COVID itself was a adab also. There's no doubt about that. Subhanallah, for all the oppression and the corruption that, was going through around the world. But I believed, and I still believe, that, COVID was like warning number one from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first warning. وَمَا نُرِيهِم مِّنْ آيَةٍ إِلَّا هِيَ أَكْبَرُ مِنْ أُخْتِهَا. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He sends a warning, and then comes another bigger warning. So there's very good reasons to believe that COVID was like a warm-up. It was like warning number one. And that now, with the consequences of whatever Donald Trump is doing to the world, it's gonna get bigger. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. We don't know the ghaib, we don't know the unseen, but we judge, again through the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what we have in front of us, the data we have in front of us. It looks like this time it's going to be even bigger than COVID. And who knows what's gonna come up next, right? Is this going to lead to, huge armed conflicts? Imagine if major wars come back again, and that whatever you saw in Gaza is going to become, a standard, like a normal thing through the world, around the world, because it has happened in World War I, World War II, and even before, when there was no cameras and no media. But we have the two world wars. But two world wars, technology was not as advanced and as crazy, as dangerous as it is right now. So imagine, if whatever happened in Gaza, you will see it around the world, east, west, because, countries will start fighting each other, and, new alliances and civil wars and so on and so forth, because ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَمْ يَكُ مُغَيِّرًا نِعْمَةً أنعمها على قوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. That when people, they change, meaning they are not grateful toward the ni'mah of Allah Azza wa Jal, we have went through very exceptional times in the history of mankind. The past few decades were very exceptional, minus COVID and even COVID. It was very exceptional in terms of the comfort we have access to nowadays, the luxury we have access to nowadays, the ease of life we have access to nowadays. Think about food, communication. It's like we are so spoiled. Nothing stops. Everything we want something bigger, upgrade, the newer model, the next year something bigger. We used to have regular TVs, and then, became a few years after it became, color TVs, not black and white anymore. And then they said, color TVs, we want something more advanced. And then came, 720p, and then HD. And then they said, HD, why don't you, did you hear about the newest technologies, like 2K, and then 4K, and then people now saying 8K, and, virtual reality. I'm just giving an example here in one thing, right? But you can apply it to think about all the appliances that we have nowadays for cooking, for different services, right? Think about the electronics. Crazy stuff. The trade, Amazon, being able to order things online, the ease of traveling. Umrah has become so easy. People can go to Umrah, people can travel through. But are we grateful toward Allah Azza wa Jal, or are we turning these very elements of the luxury and the ease of life into, tools of disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and tools of us becoming corrupt, and again becoming so dissociated from anything spiritual, from anything related to the soul, related to the ibadah. We are so busy with our bodies, with the superficial things, we have forgotten completely or almost completely about the akhirah, subhanallah. Then what's going to happen? Allah Azza wa Jal, it's His sunnah, that's how it works in this universe. If we as human beings, we don't turn to Allah Azza wa Jal and make tawbah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send a sudden, unexpected form, or many forms of adhab, that it will just flip the world upside down, and all of that luxury will disappear, and we will enter into a very, very painful era. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and protect all the Muslimin. Sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.